So, ladies and gentlemen, continuing with our presentations, I'd like to now welcome our next speaker, Erwin Van Helden, Head of Payments and Digital Channels, MIA Temenos. Now, he has over 20 years of experience in banking and IT. Erwin joined the Temenos MIA team in 2018 to realize their ambition to conquer the payments and digital channels market in the Middle Eastern and African regions. Ladies and gentlemen, please warmly welcome to the stage, Erwin Van Helden.
Hi, thank you very much. Can you hear me properly? All right, great. That's good to see. It's good to notice. All right, short introduction. My name is Erwin Van Helden. The rest is in the bio page of the folder you have received. So let's go and dive into what we're going to talk about today. My story will be about what you've heard all before about the market changes and how to address the market changes. And in the topics I was requested to talk about is how to deal with legacy, in the environment. So in the panel discussion just before, in the fireplace conversation, the question was asked, so how does the bank of the future look like? And I think since we're coming back from a break, and that question was asked, maybe it would be interesting to see a perspective, I'm not saying the perspective, but a perspective of how the bank in the future could look like. So a small video clip.
So, what have I got on today?
Your first meeting is with Martin. He was CIO at a bank before he set up his own health tech company. He's just moved the meeting to your offices and there's traffic by the school. Shall I get a car here earlier?
Yeah, sounds good.
This evening, you are out with the family for Amanda's birthday.
Did you order the gift I picked out?
Yes, it's wrapped and is still on track to be delivered to your office before lunch.
Great, thanks. Tammy, what was a bank?
I am a bank. A bank was a place where you managed your money.
What, people had to manage their money themselves?
So, what happened to all the banks?
I am a bank.
You're an AI, my personal assistant.
And to be the best I can, I've learnt all about you. Your health and wealth, work and social life.
So, you're really the bank of me?
Yes, I like that. While we are talking, you have been very busy on the Simmons project. There is a gap in your diary, so I've put in some time to see your parents. You last saw them 6 months ago. Flights are held on your points, so this won't upset your saving goals.
Can you get Claude so I can talk to him about that new watch concept I saw in GQ?
Yes, calling now. While we wait, you're not travelling this week, and the fridge is looking a bit empty. Shall I fill your grocery cart with your usual items?
Sure.
Thanks.
We're thinking about getting a dog.
Okay, there are a few things to think about. Insurance, food, vet bills.
Right, yeah.
Regular walks with the dog may make you eligible for a discount on your life insurance policy and health insurance. That should easily cover the extra costs. One more thing, what will you call it? I like the name Jess.
So do I.
Okay, this maybe was a little bit of an inspirational movie on where we could be and what is the role of the bank in the future. And I think a lot of questions can be asked, but before we get there, Many steps have to be taken, and maybe the future will look differently, and the role of the banks will be very significant, and will be still in the middle of society. But this could be a future to consider, but before we get there, steps need to be taken. This is McKinsey. McKinsey is saying, go into the digital stream. And the same study says, if you don't go into the digital era, as a bank, you have an opportunity to lose, or the chances to lose 40% of your revenue on an annual basis. If you move into the space, and you move into the space as one of the early ones, revenue growth of 30% can be expected and achieved. When do you think this statement was made? This was 2015. So I think the future is now. That's what the story is. Some trends. What do we see? What have you heard from Naveed earlier? What have you heard in the discussions? What have you heard Microsoft talk about? All the changes in technology. The changes in technology to make your banking and the banking experience by the customer, make it different. So we are dealing with a new technology environment, and we're dealing with a new customer environment, and we are dealing with a new regulatory environment. We're dealing with an environment which makes us required to change. In my bio, you can see I was 15 years with ING, and not so long ago, it was actually quite normal that you shut off the bank at 2 a.m. in the night, you do all your batch processing, and then at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., all your systems came back on, and your customers could go back to business. Online, real time, 24/7, always on are now the terms. It's no longer feasible. A lot of banks, ING in that time, did patchwork, did upgrades of their environments, changed systems by putting systems in front of their core systems, loading that up with data of the processing of that night, doing all the transactions from point of sale, from ATMs, from online, from anywhere, loading that up in subsystems, and having those subsystems loaded back up into the main system. So there were ways around how to deal with your back office, but those days, I think, are over, because what we saw in the previous slide, we have a new type of customers, we have new type of competitors, the Amazon, the Facebook. I believe at the 1st of August this year, Absa Bank stated in South Africa that WhatsApp payments are supported by them. I think the time to move, we heard PSD2, the time we are dealing with is requiring this other back office environment. But we're not only talking about back office environment at the end of the day. We're talking about customer experience. So if we talk about digital, we talk about how are we as a bank different than the other bank. Because if you all go to digital, it's all an app, it's all online, or it's a wearable, and your bank and the bank of the competitor look the same. So how can you be unique? And that question I'd like to answer. So we see the customer changing its behavior. We see the banks being unbundled. We see all fintechs coming up, doing all kinds of activities. We see them offering separate loans, offering payment solutions, offering microcredits. We are dealing with another customer journey. And how do we then emulate the relationship we used to have in the brick and mortar environment, or we used to have on a real voice conversation with a client? How do you still communicate with your client? How do you give the client the feeling that the client is unique, that you still have a one-on-one relationship with that client? I don't know how many of you people here live in Dubai, but the number of SMS messages I receive from the banks here, and I live here now for 2 years, the car loans I could have had, the credit cards I could have had, the double credit cards I could have given to partners and friends, or any funding or loan. I think I could have had a lot of credit by now, but I didn't feel personally connected to my bank anymore. So, and I believe if you want to be different, And Temenos believes if you want to be different in the digital space, you need to work on your analytics. Because via your communications with your clients, any transaction of a client is a form of communication. Via your analytics, you know your client. And you can communicate with your client. You can do it event-based. He's going on a holiday, he's going to the US. You know that, he bought a ticket. Offer him US dollars, offer him a travel insurance, but you can do it also profile-based. It's different certain segment, you know where he lives, you know maybe you can even join up with some kind of a local supermarket to give him discounts to wear somewhere. But your analytics are key. That is a part of the story. But how do you get this customer intimacy in a digital space? And how do you make sure in the digital space, even via your analytics, how can you communicate and how can you be able to do that? So let's first say, okay, what is a front office change? And Forrester did in 2016 did a survey, asked the bank, so if you want to go digital, what do you need to do? If you want to go and interact with your client, the generation X, Y, Z, or the person who doesn't want to talk to you anymore, how do you make sure your bank is able to act in this environment? Now, 35% of the interviewed parties said, well, you know, what we always do. We put an online channel, we put a mobile channel, we put a wearable channel. We just plug it in on top of our existing environment. You could call it a Potemkin effect. So 35% of those bankers, they were just going on with business as usual, putting in on the front some kind of an environment. The Potemkin was, he was one of the lovers of Tsar Catherine the Great, and he wanted to show how good he was in rebuilding Russia after a war. And he did that by just creating facades. Just when the high officials and Catherine came by, he could show a newly constructed village by showing new front ends of houses. But behind that, it was still the same. And that's a big story. That's what we call a serious concern. So putting up a new online channel, putting in a new mobile channel on top of what you already have, ends up in losing your relationship, having a one-to-many relationship instead of a one-to-one relationship. You see this if you have your reality and you build up those two boxes or that extra box on top with the web and your mobile. You see the risks summed up. There's 5 risks I mentioned there. Well, I believe there are much more risks, but it's going to be expensive. It's going to be when you implement a new product or a new regulation, you have to do it in multiple systems. You have to keep up a team who's capable to manage that legacy environment. How are you going to run your analytics? Yeah, this is what your current environment might look like. It's not abnormal. When I was a banker, we had a guy who stood up and said, online internet is going to be big. Now, he was definitely right. And after, he said very quickly, let's build a new infrastructure, we have to go, the competition is coming. And the chief architect said, wait a minute, I want this to be organized and structured, a universal environment. We need to click on what we already have, but we need to upgrade the environments. The business was leading, the business decided, they moved forward. So on top of the spaghetti, you might say, an online channel was built. The guy got a promotion because he was right. The next guy stands up and he's saying, do a mobile channel. And obviously, as we all know, he's also right. So the chief architect at a certain time saying, how do I manage this? How can I make sure that if I want to help the business getting this one-on-one relationship with the client for optimal customer experience, how can I change this? We have no way to plug in analytics in such an environment, such a spaghetti environment. So the challenge which you have, if you are pushed by the market if the market demand is the only step you have in mind, you might miss out that the seamless integration with your back office is required. And the seamless integration with your back office will give you a single customer view, will give you one source of information, a single sort of truth on which you can do your analytics. It gives you an easier to manage environment. So in that environment, you're capable to push out new products immediately from your back office straight into your front office. You can optimize the interaction between your clients, so you can help him with onboarding if the regulatory environment allows that. You can help with origination, you can help with credit checks, because the front office is completely connected to your back office, and within less than a second, information gets fed back from your environment in the back, from your core banking environment, from your customer relationship management environment, from any of your subsystems, because it immediately communicates with your front end. So, in short, we think in the digital space, you want to emulate, you want to copy the relationship you had before in the office. You want to make sure the client still feels unique. And in order to do that, you need an environment, a back office and a front office integrated, which helps you with creating that relationship or maintaining that relationship. Now, Temenos, I wouldn't be here as a sponsor to plug our products, to plug our solutions. So Temenos, with this philosophy in mind, has developed something which we call our front office suite. And our front office suite connects to, obviously, T24, our 24/7 back office, but it also connects to any other of your back office you might have already. Maybe you have upgraded your back office environment and your core banking already, and you still want to have a very good front office. With our experience of back offices, with our experience in core banking, we have created an adapter which makes it possible for our front office to connect to your back office, where no business logic will need to be put in the front. You can still have that single source of information on your front end. You can have therefore your analytics, which you want to run in your front office to have that one-on-one relationship for the traveler overseas. And we have an set of integration frameworks. To show you that this is not something new for us, you know us for T24, you know us for core banking, although we are a software vendor for banks. We do we do payment hubs, we do analytics, we do anti-fraud solutions, but we do this front office as well. So this is a list, and I'm happy to talk with you afterwards. If I look at the time, I think this is perfectly the end. But this is a lot of showcases where we help banks making sure that the front office and the back office alignment, the seamless integration, has been possible. Metro Bank was nicely mentioned before, so it's good to come back to that. But there is a lot more in the list you can have a look at. You can see the improvement areas we have agreed with you. Okay. Agreed with them and where we came up with. So I'm happy to take up conversations either this afternoon together with you at our booth, or tomorrow morning, I believe we're still here, or afterwards, anytime suitable for you. If there's any questions, please feel free. And otherwise, I give it to my competitor, Backbase. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Ladies and gentlemen, Erwin Van Helden from Temenos. Thank you very much indeed.